Let's go live now to Ora Tambo International Airport, speak to one of the people on board the aircraft, social worker Nigel Branken. Nigel, a very good evening to you. You spoke to us last hour from that aircraft. Give us a sense of what's going on inside at the moment.
Hi there, sorry, I don't have very good sound, so I'm just going to talk. But basically, at the moment, there's probably about 120 people left on board. We're still waiting for what is happening. We understand a number of people are trying to get flights to go to third countries. We have people offering to purchase those tickets for people wanting to go to third countries. I've spoken to families that there's some families here that are, for example, there's one woman who has got a daughter and a sister in Canada. She's lost 17 family members. And she just wants to be reconciled with her family, and she's asking that border management allow her to go back. We also, there's a lot of refugees, probably 75% have asked to apply for refugee for asylum in South Africa, and we understand that border management is denying that, which I believe is unlawful in terms of South African law. And so we have. We're basically sitting here and trying to sort out the situation. It's dire. When I arrived on the plane, there was a pregnant woman, 9 months pregnant, literally at the point of giving birth. And sorry, it's quite emotional. She was going down the stairs and just in a lot of pain, discomfort. When I came onto the plane, it was excruciatingly hot. There were lots of children just sweating and screaming and crying. We walked into this tube that's been on the runway that has been on the runway all day. Right. Fortunately, with the evening coming in now, it's a little bit cooler. At about 3 o'clock, they allowed some people off on the plane to go and go to the toilet. There is no toilet on the plane, and the conditions are just atrocious. I do not believe that this is what South Africa is about. South Africa should be letting these people into the airport at the very least and letting them apply for asylum. This is their basic fundamental right. It's guaranteed in our constitution that we will comply with these international laws. It's in international law and it's in our domestic law. We should be giving these people asylum.
We've reached out to the Border Management Authority and the government to get clarity on what exactly is going on here, Nigel, but I want to do a quick recon of the numbers. You said there are about 120 people left on the plane. We were reporting at the top of the hour, that there were more than 150 on board. Talk to me about the balance. Have people been allowed to disembark? And if so, who was allowed and why?
So there were 14 people originally around 12 o'clock allowed to disembark. And those were people who had visas and were going to third countries immediately. They could prove that they had tickets. On board here, there's no internet. So we've had travel agents purchase tickets for people to go to third countries, but they can't access the internet. 65 and now 150. We were 165. I've just got this update. We're now 150 on the plane. So those are the numbers on the plane. So about 15 have left to go to third countries, and about 75% of those are wanting to apply for asylum.
And how will they move on to these third countries, Nigel, if they don't all have the necessary documentation? For instance, Gift of the Givers says their passports were not stamped, they say deliberately, by Israeli authorities when they left.
So one of the requests from passengers has been that South Africa just stamp them with an exit stamp. Can't we just give these people a little bit of dignity, stand with them, and give them the dignity of an exit stamp? I mean, how simple is that? It's outrageous that we can't do this. Why can't we just give them an exit stamp?
On that point, the Gift of the Giver statement also says that the Director General in the Department of International Relations, let's stay with the pictures on board the aircraft. The statement, Nigel, for you and everyone just watching, says from Gift of the Givers that the International Relations Director General, as well as the Minister Lamola, received Palestinian refugees, they said, who arrived on a flight to Johannesburg this morning. The statement then says that they're grateful to the Minister and International Relations Department for taking the initiative to write to the Ministry of Home Affairs to waive the requirement around the stamping of the passports, right? So why is that not true, that there was an arrangement reached with government?
So we have been communicating with government all day, and we were given the assurance that people would be allowed to apply for asylum. And so we issued a press statement at the beginning of the day saying we thanked Zane Dango and the Department of International Relations for facilitating this. But it seems that border management has stopped this. We've been in contact with DIRCO through various people. Dr. Suleiman has reached out to them. Numerous activists from the Palestine Solidarity organizations have reached out to several people. And we were given assurances that people would be allowed to apply for asylum. So we don't understand. I mean, this is a legal requirement. We don't understand why this is being delayed, why we can't just let people off the plane and let them apply for asylum. Like they are, people don't need documentation in terms of our domestic law to apply for asylum. We always often have people coming in, and there's a right to apply for asylum. Even coming into the country unlawfully, you go to a refugee reception referral center, you can apply for asylum. There's no reason to deny people applying for asylum.
And how did a plane load of people, Palestinian refugees, as you say, leave out of, and which part, in fact, did they leave from, and how do they ultimately get onto a plane with gaps in their documentation, these stamps that are now ultimately holding up their transit?
So this in itself is also outrageous, and this is the second plane that has landed. I was informed of a group of Palestinians arriving 2 weeks ago. I was the first one to find one of the families. I went out to Rudaput. A man had been placed in an Airbnb, and he told me his story that this NGO called Al Majd had basically trafficked them out of Israel. And so we alerted the Department of International Relations. He told us there were 150 people on that plane. Over the course of the week, we then managed to track down probably about 105 of those people. We were informed by border management that 59 had taken flights into third countries. And so we started working with the families. We worked with a number of aid agencies to find out their stories. And this is the story. And let me just explain. Basically, people went through the Karim Shalom crossing. So first of all, they were phoned in the middle of the night. And
Nigel, I think you've muted yourself, so let's see if we can get your audio going. We lost you just about when you said they left through the Karim Shalom crossing, received calls in the middle of the night. As you tell that part of the story, who called them? And you also used the word trafficked for the previous group. Is that how you would characterize what's happened here?
So very clear that this group of people are refugees in terms of the Refugee Convention. They intentionally fleeing Gaza. So they have asked to leave Gaza, and they have rights in terms of international law to apply for asylum. Having said that, there are very clear marks of Israel's involvement in this. If you go on the internet now, you'll see Israel has in fact sent 16 planes out to third countries as they're trying to target some of the richest and most influential people. The people we've come in contact with are doctors, teachers, medical personnel. I've met dentists, I've met professionals, people who've had businesses, and they've had to pay a lot of money to an NGO that's very dubious that operates out of the UAE. Some of the initial investigations that we've done have showed that the website, if you go and have a look at yourself, you'll see that a lot of the website is artificial intelligence generated, and this is Al Majd Europe. And so what happened was they went to the buses in the morning. They were told, the previous group, to leave their bags behind. They got to the Karim Shalom crossing. They were then told to leave every possession behind. We had people who they took the glasses off their faces, the glasses that people could see with, they took those off. So that group of people we've had to take to optometrists, we've had to get them to get new glasses prescriptions, but Israel got them to leave everything behind at the Karim Shalom crossing. Then they took them through the Karim Shalom crossing and to the Ramon military base. It was at the Ramon, can you hear me still?
Yes, we can still hear you. Very quickly, Nigel.
So it was at the Ramon military base that the previous group boarded a unmarked plane that had Russian-speaking crew on it. This group had, it seemed to be a Romanian plane that, again, they weren't stopped when they weren't, their passports weren't stamped. I mean, this is an intentional action. It's a deliberate action by the state of Israel to make these people illegal in the world and to create a problem for the world. We as the people of the world have signed international conventions that we will accept refugees. That's our global commitment to these people. So they then flew from Ramon to Nairobi. The previous group informed us that in Nairobi, an Israeli intelligence officer told them that he had been given the list and was to keep them in the Ramon airport until another plane came. And then they were transported by a chartered plane. On the boarding passes, it says Trade Winds, and on the it's Global Aviation Services. That's the company's name. But when we came to the plane today, you can clearly see it's marked Lyft. The crew have all been Lyft Airlines. If you Google Lyft, you have a look at the ownership of Lyft, you'll see Lyft is an airline that is owned by people who went to Herschel School, a well-known Zionist school. Lyft has been complicit, in our view, in human trafficking. We believe charges need to be laid against the staff, against these, against the airline personnel, and they need to be arrested for human trafficking.
And we'll
but that's a separate issue. The first issue is we're sitting with a humanitarian crisis. How can you leave people who come out of a genocide on a tarmac for a whole day and not get assistance that they need? It is unacceptable to leave people on the tarmac.
And we'll reach out to Lyft and the Airports Company of South Africa to get a sense of what's happened with this plane, how it was allowed to land in the first instance with people who don't have documentation in order, etc. And some of us you've also been alleging now, Nigel, very quickly, is there any official presence on board the aircraft from the South African government, be it DIRCO, the International Relations Department, or the Border Management Authority?
So we've had the South African police on board. They've been incredibly helpful. I think if it wasn't for the South African police, Border Management Services would have just got away with. It seems that somebody in Border Management Services is trying to embarrass the South African government. We know the South African government has taken a strong stand at the International Court of Justice. We know that Israel is targeting. We know that America is targeting the South African government. This is unacceptable. And I'm just so grateful that the South African police allowed me onto the plane as a social worker to come and meet with the passengers, to come and hear their stories. I have been helping the first group that arrived from the day that they arrived. I'm grateful to the South African government. We've been liaising with DIRCO. I know DIRCO has been working behind the scenes. And we initially had assurances from DIRCO and several people within government that these people would be released, they would be facilitated to get asylum. But it seems that there is some sort of influence within the border management that is wanting to embarrass the South African government. We should not be treating people like this. This is not who South Africa is.
We have to move on shortly, Nigel, but just finally, when were you made aware that this plane was going to land or had landed? And what did you say to convince the authorities to actually allow you on a plane that they're, for all intents and purposes, parked on the tarmac and are not allowing the people to get off?
So the very first moment when we heard of the first plane, we contacted DIRCO and we informed them about what was happening. Subsequent to that, we've kept DIRCO informed of all the stories. We've let DIRCO speak to. We've sent through stories to DIRCO. We've been cooperating fully with authorities over the course of the 2 weeks. And I think that it's because we've been working with the authorities that they've given us this trust to allow us onto the plane. So I'm really grateful for those people within government that are doing the right thing.
Who is housing?
But clearly there's also government that are not following our laws.
Who is housing, Nigel? Who is housing that first flight load of people who you said were actually allowed to get through immigration services and go possibly to various parts of South Africa? You referenced one family that is taken in, if I can use that language, by a South African family in Roodepoort. Where are the rest?
So we have, I'm not going to share locations of them because obviously for safety, but we have 5 locations throughout Gauteng where many generous people have given houses, guest houses, have provided them accommodation for 3 months. And as a social worker this week, I've been working with a number of NGOs. And again, we don't want to mention the NGOs' names because we know how Israel works and how they target these people. So a number of NGOs, particularly from the Muslim community, have been exceptionally helpful in providing housing. On the weekend, we had about 90 doctors who did medical assessments of the first groups. We had pediatricians, dentists. We had lots of optometrists. We had dietitians looking at many of the people in the first group were incredibly malnourished. And so we had lots of dietitians working on that. And during the course of this week, we've been following up with medical. So basically, we've placed, I think it is now 105 of the 117 that are still left, we believe, in South Africa. So we still need to trace about 12, but we've got 105 approximately traced and in accommodation provided by our NGO network and civil society network.
Thank you very much for that, Nigel. We'll come back to you hopefully later here on SABC News. For viewers just joining us, we were just speaking to Nigel, who is Nigel Branken, a passenger, well, a social worker he says he is, who's on board a flight at OR Tambo International Airport carrying what has been described as Palestinian, what we're told are Palestinian refugees who, for some reason, found themselves or were called to board a flight out of Gaza in the last, let's say, 24 hours or so and have been stuck on the tarmac at OR Tambo.